finally, it's time to build some tiny tanks with Toppy. I've got a lot of scratch-built alt vehicles, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to show off some of the techniques. And what better place to do this than with Grot Tanks, because they're small and they're really quick to build, so I can demonstrate a whole thing really quite quickly. Guzblatt Nosebiter has volunteered to be a scale reference figure here. So this is one of my Grot Tanks. This is one of the more recent ones. Obviously rocket launcher equipped, and oh, you can really see through the camera the bits that haven't been painted. It's pretty hard to see them in, usually. Rotating turret. The turret does come off. It's just held in with a little pin. Designed to look kind of truck-like. And I've also got this one with me now. This one is unpainted. This is finished, but I haven't started painting it yet. I finished it ages ago. I don't know why I stopped painting. There's a googly eye on the back there. Quite like googly eyes. Gives you a bit of an idea of what one looks like before it's actually been painted. And if we hold up young Guzblatt next to it, you can see how tiny they really are. So the first thing I did was draw up some plans. These are the plans. I'm going to point at them with a knife because, yeah, it makes me feel professional. So this is a basic hull shape. It's about 6 centimeters long in total by about 4 centimeters tall, about 3 centimeters across the hull. Of course, it gets wider when we add the tracks. So side view, top view, front view, and then this is the tracks. I haven't done a front view of the track because I felt it was pretty obvious. So these are all the components. It's quite small. We're going to be cutting that out of plasticard. Boom. And I've already drawn all of the parts onto it. I always label them. Those little hatches there showing me that that's part that's not actually being used. So I'm going to cut these out and then we're going to start assembling them. Okay, well that's all the pieces cut out. We're going to have a hiatus here while I go and grab a few more tools to clean things up and get some glue, and then we're going to start assembling things. Okay, I've made some space, just cleared a few things away, and we're ready to start actually assembling our hull. So when I'm doing this, I always like to have my steel ruler because plastic cement doesn't stick to steel rulers. So it's a really useful surface to use. Now, plastic cement can actually sometimes, depending on your self-healing cutting mat, can actually stick and get a bit gummy. So I'm not mad about using that. Steel ruler gives a really nice surface to work on. I've also cleaned up the edges with an emery board. So, got my roll contactor professional. Choice of champions, I don't know. Don't even know if it's got a slogan. So I'm going to just run a bead of glue down the side like that. This is the roof, so I'm going to just put it down on my ruler, bring the side panel up against it. That way I know I've got a nice flush join along the top. The glue's not going to stick to the ruler, so I can just lift it off easily. And we've got a nice, hopefully, right angle. It doesn't have to be perfectly right angle because I'm going to be gluing some other pieces in that will make things even more accurate. So there we go. We're going to have our rear upper panel here. It's going to go in like so. This is where those little bits of triangle are useful. I'm going to just add a few bracing pieces. Use the tip of my knife to pick it up. Drop it in there. And that will just help to keep that piece in place. there's the basic body done. As you can see, not absolutely perfect, but that's fine. We are doing an Orc build or a Grot build, so it can be a little rough. Going to let this dry for a bit before we build the bonnet, especially because I forgot to compensate for the material thickness. So that's about 2mm too long there, the floor, because I forgot to compensate for the fact that the back panels and so forth have got an actual thickness. So that's going to need to get trimmed off. I need to leave that to dry for a bit. So instead, while we wait for that, let's get the track units assembled. Alright, well, major assembly's done, apart from obviously the other side of the tracks. You can see the bonnet is not even remotely correctly sized, but that is fine. That's going to go on the front, and it's going to be plated over with a whole lot of other stuff, so it's not actually going to be noticeable. I'm going to trim that back, trim off the excess, get that installed. I think we might just do a hiatus until that's been done, and then we can look at the next few steps. Before we do anything more with the tracks, they need to be rounded off, so, well, it looks like the tracks will actually run even remotely smoothly around them. So this one I've already done, this one I'm about to do. Weapon of choice is an emery stick, and all we're going to do is just sand them, making sure we wrap the stick around like that. Anyway, you get the picture. I don't think we even need to use fast motion for the rest of this. We'll just cut to the next bit. Time to get some work done on the track units. So they've all been rounded off nicely. I've got a few pieces here that we're going to be using. So first off, I've got 6 of these little pieces of rectangular tube, and we're going to be using those to make mud chutes, which are going to go into the slots there. I'm going to be using some plasticard there to back up, to put on the back of them. I've got some strips of plasticard here. I've got 4 cut to size, and I've got a little bit of spare there. That's going to be used to make some framing. And I've also got here different sizes of plastic rod for making rivets. One of them is hex rod for making nuts or bolts. Once that's done, I'm going to glue them onto the side of the body, and then we'll start detailing up the body. While I wait for those to dry, there is a step that I forgot to mention earlier on. Because this is an Orc, or at least in this case Grot vehicle, it needs to look really rough. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to roughen up the edges so it looks like it's been hacked up with axes and things, because that's probably how they made it. I'm just going to get a knife, just hack away like that so that we get a nice rough, chipped, weathered and damaged edge. Note that I'm not cutting away at that top edge there, because that is going to be up against the hull and you won't actually be able to see it. So I'm only going to do it to places you can see. Same reason I'm not doing anything to the edge of that slot there, because there's going to be some framing around that, so you won't see that part. When you're cutting rivets like this, if you put your finger over the back of the blade, it's actually there to catch the piece as it gets cut off, because otherwise they're liable to go pinging across the room, fall into the floor and get eaten by the carpet monster. You always also want to cut a few more than you expect you'll need, because you'll lose some, and some of them just won't end up being the right shape. Alright, there we are. We better leave that to dry for a little bit, and then we'll get on with plating the rest of the body. While we wait for the hull and track assembly to dry, we're going to start working on the turret. So this is a bit of PVC pipe, and this is the length I've cut from the PVC pipe using a picture framing saw, which is basically just a fancy saw for cutting precise angles. A miter box will work, I just have a picture framing saw and I'm not afraid to use it. So I've got this panel here I'm going to be gluing onto the top. We're going to wrap some thinner plasticard. I've got some 0.5mm here. I'm going to wrap some of that around, then we're going to put another plate on for the bottom, glue everything together and make it nice and secure. Drill a hole through, put a pin in there so that we can actually have it rotating and turning and so forth, detail it up, make a gun. And because we're using PVC pipe, which is a different kind of plastic, it doesn't respond to plastic cement. I'm going to need to use super glue. If we're going to be wrapping this 0.5mm plasticard around our turret, we want it pre-shaped. Now, it will actually wrap quite nicely. It's nice and flexible, but it's going to stick a lot better if we've already got a bit of a curve to it. And the way we do that is we get a smaller tube like this bit of plastic tube here, and we wrap it and we bend it and we put a bit of force to it. You can see it's kind of holding the shape. And if we use a smaller tube, tighter radius, it'll hold an even tighter curve. And that will put much less stress on it. Need to hold this for a little while the glue sets up. Super glue does claim to set instantly, but it really only sets instantly to skin. It sets pretty close to instantly, but it will need to hold it a little while just to make sure. We can see there's still some liquid super glue oozing out the top there. So let's give that time to set. Let's let this glue dry for a little bit, then we're going to trim things. Well, we're waiting on a few things to dry, so time to start cutting out tracks. This is probably enough tracks. I don't know. I didn't measure or anything. I'm going to cut these up, and then I'm going to start adding them. And through the magic of the jump cut, you don't have to watch the whole process. That is what you missed. So, aren't you glad that I time skipped there? Time to start gluing things on. Gonna run a bead of glue along the top of the track area. I'm gonna start adding tracks, and I'm gonna be putting little pieces of plastic rod in between for the hinges, like that, over and over and over again. There we go. One whole side of tracks done. And I'll save you the tedium of watching me do the other side. go. There were 6 track links left over. I did have to cut a few more bits of rod, but tracks are now complete. So I can do a few other nifty things. I've got the turret here. I've added some putty there. This is Green Stuff World's green putty. There were some holes and gaps and mistakes, and although it's an Orc vehicle, it's fine if the mistakes look like the Orcs made them, but if it looks like the modeler made them, then you need to fix them. And gaps were pretty obvious and weren't very Orky, so putty those up. Sands back nice and smooth like that. That's what we're looking for. Drilled a hole in it so that I can mount it. Haven't drilled the hole to mount it into yet, but we're going to pause again while I get materials together for the next couple of steps. We are back, and it's time to start detailing up the hull. I've sketched some things on here with a pencil, so I've got rough ideas of where things go. Vision slits, reinforcing, there's going to be a grill there, doors, armor plating, exhaust systems, that kind of thing. We're going to start off by building a radiator. So I have here a piece of clapboard siding. It's really hard to actually tell if this is showing up on the camera. It looks like it's showing up like that. It's HO scale clapboard siding. For those of you who don't live in America, clapboard is weatherboard in Australia. It is used on the outside of buildings, sort of overlapping planks, and it's easy to buy for model railways in HO scale, I guess. I'm not actually sure. I think it's 1/87th scale is HO scale, and it makes a really good louvered texture, so it's great for making grills and vents and like radiators from. That's what we're going to do. I've also got some square plastic rods. They're going to be used as well to make a surround. So I've glued a little spacer on the back just because I wanted this to stand out a little further, and I'm going to start assembling that down on my ruler here just so I don't get any glue in the wrong places. Need to leave that to dry, and then I'm going to trim that and add that top piece. So let's just move that to the side for a minute while it dries, and now let's start building some reinforcing. So I've got some plasticard C channel here, which I'm going to be using to make some reinforcements on the front. But before I do that, I've just remembered, let's just pop the turret off for a second. Now that I know where plating's going, I know which bits need to actually be roughened up, so I'm going to start hacking away. Clogged glue needle. This is a wire tie from freezer bags. We scraped the knife along it a few times to get rid of the plastic. Peel that most of the way off. I like to leave a little bit on because otherwise you lose the bit of wire. This wire is thin enough to fit down the needle and clear it out. There we go, perfect. Alright, time to show one of the cool things. These are vision hatches. That means we have to make some hinges. We're going to need some 0.5mm plasticard. Then I'll also need some plastic rod. I'm going to make the hinge part out of this one. Next, these strips of 0.5mm plasticard. Right, front door hinge is on there, and I reckon we might take a break at that point so I can scrounge up a few important materials for the next steps. It is time to work with tubes. We're going to be building exhaust and we're going to be building the main gun, and to work with tubes we need some special tools. We've got my tube cutter here. We've also got a gas match, I think they're called, lighter thingy. I don't smoke it, I've never smoked, so I don't have an actual lighter lying around, but I've always got one of these. They're really good for just generating a bit of heat. We're going to be heat forming some plastic rod, and I've got my pin vise here, which we'll be using for the gun. Well, we're going to start off with the exhaust. So my plan is the exhaust is going to come out here and here, and the stacks are going to go up there. Now, plastic rod, Evergreen Styrene's plastic rod, is designed to nest. Now, this is one of the packages. You see this number here, item number 226. Even numbered tubes nest inside even numbered tubes, and odd numbers nest inside odd numbers. Now, this is size 225 and 227. I don't actually have the packages for these anymore. You see they nest inside each other like that. And the reason I'm using this instead of the even numbers is this is the largest rod I've got, and that nests inside 224. So what we're going to do is use the tube cutter. We slip that in a little ways like that, tighten the blade up on it, start turning, tighten the blade up a little bit more, turn, 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 tighten, turn, 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 pull it out. And you can see there, it's actually started cutting, and this will probably pop off pretty easily with a knife. This is actually not the size I want. I've made that too big because I was trying to make it easy to see while I was demonstrating. I'm going to cut some small slices. We're going to push some of this in. I'm going to heat it up and bend it, and then we're going to make the body of the exhaust out of this. So I've now got my bend. I'm going to cut the other end off, and we're going to start actually turning this into exhaust. So let's go. You know what I've done? I've forgotten that this needed to be a multiple curve because I needed to come out here and then straighten up. So let's go back to the fire. exhaust system to dry for a little bit before I actually mount it, because there's a little bit of drilling that has to happen. I don't want pieces moving around. So let's move on to the big shooter. For the gun, we are going with even numbered tube sizes. So we're going to start with 224, and we're going to be using 226 and 228. So 224 will be the actual barrel, 226 and 228 will be providing the shrouds. Let's see, how long do I want this gun to be? I want to leave that to dry for a little bit while I work on the exhaust mounts again. Well, we've been here for a while, so I'm going to pause and go and think about the next steps. Time to finish off our hatch. I've got some important materials here. This is 1/87th scale or HO scale tread plate, which I'm going to be using to make some armor panels around the side. And these are snap fasteners or press studs, depending on who you ask. These make fantastic giant door handles. You know those huge turny things that they have on like submarine doors or airlocks? Those. So I've also got here a googly eye. Yeah, a lot of my figures, a lot of my models rattle because I use googly eyes. These make great hatches. The thing about these though is, although they're plastic, they're made from a very slick plastic, so we need to scratch those up a bit before they'll actually stick. That should do. Now, before I glue it down, I'm going to drill a hole in it. There's 2 parts to a press stud. They've probably got names, I don't know what they are. This one, with the narrower rim and all that, that's the one that I usually use. And we're going to make a hinge for that once that's a little bit drier. While that's going on, I'm just going to take the pin out from the bottom of the turret so I can sit it flat while it's drying. While that's going on, we're going to start making some armor for the sides. So, I'm going to cut some H-beam here just to make a little underside support for the gun. So this is a little steel mitre box from a hobby shop. I have actually cut all the way through one of these once, but it did take a long time. It was one I had for like 15 years or something. And just gradually over time, I ended up cutting the whole way through. Razor saw here. This is not my best razor saw. That's not here at the moment. This is an old Citadel razor saw. It's a second-hand one. Rivets and things now. Okay, I think that's our turret finished. Rivets all over the place. Nice little hatch with a hinge. We've got the bolts on the front, just a bit of hex rod with some very fine rod added on the end. I'm going to set that aside to dry for a while before I reinstall its pin, and then we'll be able to glue that in. Got all the rivets on the hull, the radiator cap installed. I've put some big bolts on the roof. Now that'll be a little bit of an issue because when I put the turret on, the turret's not going to hit the bolts, so it won't rotate. So we need to put on a turret ring. And the other thing I want to do is actually add some headlights. We've also got all of the exhaust stuff here at the back, nice and finished. So, turret ring, headlights, and then we're done. Well, we are now joined by a metal washer. This is going to be our turret ring. Just going to glue that on with some super glue. Sometimes there's a bit of a burr around them and you need to sand them back. This one's actually nice and smooth, so I'm just going to glue that on with some super glue. Now, I like to use metal washers because obviously they're nice and round and they've got a hole through the middle, and round shapes are really hard to cut. But also they just add a bit of weight because these models are very light, being purely plasticard. That washer just gives it a little bit of reassuring weight, makes it feel a little nicer in the hand. I'm not going to mount the turret just now because I've just glued the pin in and I don't want it to come out again. Now for our headlights, we're going to be using some of these. These are, well, bound to have an official name, you know, domed stickers. I think they're used for scrapbooking. They come on little sort of self-adhesive strips, and they come in a whole lot of sizes. Now these ones are way too large, well, for headlights anyway, good searchlights. These are about right, but because it's a Grot Tank, it's quite small. We're going to make very small headlights using these, the smaller size I've got here. Now I've already checked this plastic tube, I'm not actually sure which number plastic tube this is, and it's going to depend on your dome bead sticker thing. But this tube's the right size to fit one of those. And this is the tube that nests inside of it. So, we're going to cut a piece of this. Now a little bit of that in the back. Tube gets in the front for a lens, and we might just use a little bit of green stuff world putty there just to fill up the hole at the back. We're going to glue these beside the radiator. I think we might actually go for 4 headlights because quad headlights always looks cool. So I'm going to need to let those dry for a little while. Once that's done, I'll use a little bit of this putty just to fill the gaps in the back. I'm going to glue them down the sides of the radiator. But that's going to take a little while, so I think we might just cut. So that having been done, and the whole thing being completed. Our little Grot Tank's all finished now, and while I was waiting for the headlights to dry, I did actually end up adding a few final touches. Almost all of my vehicles have got rego plates, so I stuck that on. Don't really know what that is, but I put that blanking plate there to hide a gap, so I put a dome on it to make it a little bit cooler. There's the headlights, little emblem there. And I've also made a periscope so that our grots can actually see what they're shooting at. So just the same techniques I used on the exhaust pipes. There we go. I'll rotate. It won't go all the way because the exhaust pipes get in the way, but that's not a big problem. Added a few more rivets around the back as well, just to make it look a little bit heavier, a little bit more armoured. But for now, that's it. Goodbye.